Hello and welcome back to the Yay for Business podcast. It's me, Courtney Chaal. I promised you in last week's episode that this week I was going to break down me actually creating my own ideal client magnet for you. And the irony is last week's episode where I talked about minimally viable marketing, I talked about how I'm not committing to doing video anymore with my podcast because it started to make everything overdone. And then I wouldn't actually record the podcast because I was like, oh God, now I got to deal with this. But what's funny is that because what I'm going to be talking about this week is so visual, I have decided to film and have a screen share of what I'm doing in this podcast episode. So if you happen to be listening to this, just audio, that's fine. I'm going to try to describe everything really well so that it's going to be fine. But if you want to watch the video, I highly recommend that. We'll throw this one up on YouTube so you can see the visuals that go along with this, because I think that's what makes everything really click and make it simple. And that's what I'm all about, taking these complex concepts like marketing, this giant thing, and bringing it down to a really simple pieces that we can have a framework for, a mnemonic, an image, whatever, that makes it like, oh, this is what I do. Okay. So I want to show you in real time how I'm doing this. The other thing I'm probably not going to do so much in this episode is explain all of how the ideal client magnet works. I will touch on like what green, yellow, and red are and what drip, drizzles, and deluges are. But if you want the context of the actual ideal client magnet and how to build it, I have a video on that. I will put a link in the show notes to go download this video, which is my overview. It's a free video on how to build your ideal client magnet. You can also go comment on any one of my Instagram posts, the word magnet, any reel or anything, and I will DM you that link. Okay. So the mini chatbot is set up for that. So what we're going to talk about in this episode is how I'm going through the process of refining my ideal client magnet. And this is the exact order in which I would recommend that you go about creating your ideal client magnet. I'm actually deep in the process of building the training for the Consistent Clients Club, which is my new membership. Right now, I'm doing the behind the scenes founders launch. So you could get a deal. If you email me and you ask for details, I will send you the details. I'm not sharing them publicly, but if you're seeing this in the future, because this is part of my yellow drizzle content, everything's so meta here, you'll see this video and this podcast will be up for a long time. You can go get details for the Consistent Clients Club on my website. Okay, I'm stumbling over it because I changed the name recently. So pardon the change in that. I might call it the Get Clients Lab a few times on accident. Okay, so let's dive in here. In my ideal client magnet, what I'm trying to do is hit on ideally 9 boxes of strategies. It doesn't mean I need 9 strategies, because you could have multiple strategies in a box and you could have one strategy hit multiple boxes. But I'm trying to refine my particular ideal client magnet, and not just as a static, ultimately here's what I want, but in so much of, okay, what do I focus on first, second, third? Like, what is it that I'm going to focus on? Because I'm launching this new membership, this gives me an opportunity to refine my ideal client magnet with that in mind, right? That is my goal. That is my paid offer. And the Consistent Clients Club, and in the things that I teach, I'm really focused on service providers, one-on-one service providers, even like one-to-many or group service providers, but specifically service providers. Now, what I'm going to share today will work for any kind of business, but just so you know, we're going to talk about this in so much as it works for service providers inside of the Consistent Clients Club. Now, the idea here is that if I'm hitting growth marketing, which is green, yellow marketing, which is nurture, and red marketing, right? But I'm also doing the next dimension of that is the drips, drizzles, and deluges, meaning the passive, consistent stuff that's kind of operating behind the scenes, that weekly content that's happening, that's the heartbeat of the marketing is the drizzle. And then the deluge being like the one-off projects, big kind of promotions or whatever. That if I do that, the more boxes that I check and the more that I interconnect those boxes together, and making sure that each one of those things is actually doing its job, the more and better clients I'm going to get. Okay. So that's what I'm going to be doing. I'm going to be taking this right here. We're going to design Courtney's ideal client magnet. Let's put the title up here so we can see this. Courtney's ideal client magnet. Okay. And then we can zoom out a little bit. And this is where we are designing that. Now, on the visual, what I have here is within those 9 boxes, I have the yellow boxes are the ones that are the highest priority. And then I've numbered them in terms of the order in which we want to make sure that those pieces are built. Okay. So it is always going to be the priority to do red marketing first, and then yellow marketing, and then green. And that makes sense, right? We want to focus on selling first, and then nurturing more people for the selling, and then growing and getting more visibility to get more people to nurture, to get more people to sell to. But what that does is it makes sure that I'm always getting sales. I'm not going to focus first on growth marketing. That's why it has a number 5 in there, because then I'm going to be spending all this time and energy on growing, but I'm not going to be making money. So I'm always going to set up my sales engine as much as I can first. Then I'll go into my yellow drizzle and then my green drizzle. I will touch on in this episode why the other 4 boxes, the green and yellow drips and the green and yellow deluges, are not my priority. I will talk about that, but I want to just first go in order and talk about how I decide, how I figure out what goes in my ideal client magnet. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do, and this is the visual you're going to see, is actually from the training that's going into the Consistent Clients Club, okay? So the first thing we're going to do is ask ourselves, what is already working before we add sexy new strategies? A lot of us think oh, I want to grow an Instagram or whatever. And I'm not saying anything's wrong with that. Okay. But the problem is a lot of you want to grow on Instagram, but you haven't set up your forever content, which is your yellow drizzle, let alone your red strategies. Okay. So it's not the priority. And our priority isn't doing strategies that are new. Our priority is focusing on, okay, let's take stock of what's already going on. What's the magnet that's already there? Because oftentimes you're not starting from scratch, right? There are things that you have in place, but we need to make sure that those things are doing their job and that they're connecting together so that leads are going from green to yellow to red, not just I'm growing over here and then I'm nurturing and then I'm selling, but none of it's connecting. So it's not working and people are leaking out of the funnel. Okay. So you might have your ideal magnet is to have thousands of Instagram followers and a weekly YouTube video and, get all your client inquiries from IG stories on social media. But right now your green marketing is word of mouth referrals and your yellow marketing is a weekly-ish newsletter and your red marketing is a link that says book a discovery call with me on your website. Okay. That's a huge disconnect. And we can't just go build this ideal magnet over here because it's going to take time to do that. In the meanwhile, let's amp up what's working and let's tweak that and assess it. Okay. So in my case, what I'm going to ask myself is what's already happening. And I'm going to go in the order that I told you, right? I'm going to start with the red deluge, then the red drizzle, then the red drip, then the yellow drizzle, then the green drizzle. Okay. That's the order in which I'm going to prioritize building my ideal client magnet. Again, so that I'll have sales. So the first thing I'm going to do is go, okay, my red deluge, the goal of red deluge, I'm going to show you on a slide over here and I'll say it out loud for those of you who are listening, is the goal or the job of the red deluge is occasional big marketing that leads to sales directly, not growth, not nurture, but directly to sales. It's to get people to pay me. And it's a one-off project that's going to get people to pay me. So here's some examples of red deluges. The question I'm asking myself is, how am I selling to people in a one-off way, like a one-off or project-based strategy that I will only do occasionally, something that I'm not setting up as a forever thing, but occasionally. So examples of this are live promotions, flash offers, hosting a one-time sales event, like a webinar or workshop, or like a mini service offer. Okay. So in my case, what I'm doing right now is I am doing a founding members launch, I guess you could call it. So that is going to be my one-off thing right now. All right. That's my red marketing. All right. So within that, I could get into the details, right? I could say, okay, I'm going to be doing some emails, social media content, etc. All right. So we're doing this really specific founding members launch of the Consistent Clients Lab. That is the one-off deluge red marketing direct to sales that has I now go into okay, how do I do a launch? I have a strategy for that. So I know how to implement that. Okay. So that's my red marketing for deluge. Next, I'm going to go number 2 is my red drizzle. Okay. So my red drizzle, I'm going to be answering the following question. The question I'm going to be answering is, how am I selling people with marketing that I do actively and regularly? How am I going to be selling the Consistent Clients Lab in the marketing that I'm doing actively and regularly, meaning like my weekly, bi-weekly, monthly marketing? So examples of a red drizzle could be, mentioning your paid offer and weekly content. Why do you think I keep mentioning the Consistent Clients Lab in this video? Why? Why do you think it makes sense for me to do a video about me creating my ideal client magnet while I talk to you about the founding members launch for the Consistent Clients Lab? This is my weekly content. This is why this gets really meta. Right now, my weekly content, which by the way is going to fit right here in number 4. Okay. For me, that's going to be my podcast, email, newsletter, and blog, which I already have set up systems for. I talked about last week the importance of minimally viable marketing. I've spent many moons creating these systems and doing that. So I'll get into the yellow in a second, but I just want you to see, like, this video that you're watching is a part of my yellow drizzle, my weekly content. And in that weekly content, I'm doing soft mentions of the Consistent Clients Lab. Okay. So mention CCC in weekly content. All right. That is going to give me a weekly drizzle, because then every week people are going to hear about the Consistent Clients Lab. Do you see where I'm going with this? Then when I'm actually emailing people about the founding members launch, this isn't the first time that you've heard about it. Likely, okay? Because I've created this ecosystem, this rabbit hole that you're in of my content, where I'm constantly cross-referencing things, leading from one piece of content, one strategy to the next. Now we've got an ecosystem going, okay? So that's an example of my red drizzle. So mentioning paid offers and weekly content, regular Instagram stories about my offers. So that's something I could do. I'm going to add that in here. We're going to do IG stories about CCC. I could do that weekly or like during the launch. That's kind of like part of the launch, but then once the launch is done, I can do it weekly when it's open. Regular promo of my I don't have a magical mini webinar for this. I'm not going to get into that. That's a great strategy for service providers. I'm not doing that for this. Regular live sales events. I'm not doing anything like that. Okay. So I've now answered the question, how am I selling people with my marketing that I do actively and regularly? It's literally this simple, guys, is I now know that I'm going to regularly, meaning my weekly, just think weekly if you're not sure, weekly. I'm going to make sure I'm mentioning CCC and doing the Consistent Clients Club, and I'm doing Instagram stories about the Consistent Clients Club. Okay. So I'm going to make sure that that's my red drizzle. All right. Now we move on to number 3, which is our red drip. Drip being that passive thing that's behind the scenes all the time going. The drip is not the thing that's going to get a flood of clients or a deluge of clients. That's this. But what it's going to do is it's that drip of water on a rock over time is eroding at that. And over time is going to make your ideal clients just have this constant awareness of your offers without even realizing it. You're orienting them to your world. Okay. So it's the soft mentions. So one thing I can do, this is a big thing, is I need to make sure that I'm updating my super signature in my emails, which is basically at the bottom of all my marketing emails. There's all these links and they get more clicks than anything else in my emails. I did a whole Instagram post about this before. They get more clicks than anything else. And I'm going to make sure to have with CCC. So in red, as you can see, it's always going to be direct to sales, directly information about the offer. So the drip is going to be, hey, check out the Consistent Clients Lab or Club or whatever I'm calling it. And then the drizzle is every week. I'm like bringing it into the content. You can listen to any of my podcasts. I'm always doing this. All of my podcast, almost all, I'm going to say 90% of my podcast episodes are reverse engineered. And now we're getting into number 4 here. This is yellow drizzle is number 4, reverse engineered to psychologically address the things that need to be addressed for someone to go from green to red. So every time I'm doing a podcast episode, I'm going, okay, what does somebody want to see? And then how can I use that thing they want to see to walk them in the direction of being ready for my paid offer, and then constantly doing these little drips, drizzles, and deluges so that they're ready to say yes to that offer when it's ready. And you see, like, none of these things they're not like huge things. Like updating my email signature. Like I could also update my Instagram pin posts, Instagram, I could do a pin post, right? I'm not going to do three posts about it, but G highlights. Okay, those are all red. So when they're about the offer itself, it's going to be red. Okay, so that's my red marketing. We're going to go back over here. We're going to make sure we talked about red. We did deluges, drizzles, and now drips was how are you selling people in a way that is more or less set it and forget it. So where are all the small places you're mentioning, your email signatures, your Instagram highlights, just the little like subtle mentions in all of your evergreen content, right? So some examples, soft mentions of offers and email sequences, blog posts, Instagram highlights, anything that you post once and don't really have to update very often. Email super signature I mentioned, your website homepage calls to action to paid offers. So that's something we could really consider here. If I go to my website, it doesn't say anything about this, right? So I'm going to go there and go, okay, one thing I want to do in my red drip is I want to make sure that my opt-in offers and my website are leading to CCC. So we're going to do website home opt-in offer call to actions. So like within my opt-in offers, I'm also soft mentioning and seeding my offers. Are you with me? Okay, so that's our red, I think is pretty taken care of. And that's the most important. Remember, like that's where the sales are coming from. I want you to see how, sorry, I keep flipping back and forth. I want you to see how, if I got deluges, meaning like, let's say like twice, 3, even 4 times a year, which is a lot, but like 2, 3 times a year, I do a live launch promotion of the offer, then what I can collect is all these people who have been seeing these drizzles every week are finally like, oh, I should join that now. They're not like, what is that? I've never heard of it, because they've heard of it in all these different places. But it's also the drips and the drizzles. Eventually, when I am set up for evergreen sales, which is a service provider, you should always be taking clients, that it's going to help me to also get clients coming in every single month, sales coming in every single month. Then when I do my big launches and promotions, I'm going to get a deluge of sales. That's why it's called that. But I'm going to get even more deluge of sales because I've been doing drips and drizzles, but I'm also going to get sales in between the launches because I'm doing drips and drizzles. Okay. So you can see how all this starts to fit together. All right. Now let's talk about the yellow marketing for a second. The most important here, I'm not going to really get too much into the drips and deluges for yellow. The most important, the nucleus, the epicenter of my entire magnet is what I call your forever content. I have at least one specific podcast episode all about this. I highly recommend that you listen to. I will try to make sure to drop the link in the show notes for that. But forever content is just like this YouTube video, podcast, email, blog. I'm checking all 4 boxes. Those are the 4 types of forever content. And not everyone's going to get there. You start minimally viable, like I talked about last week. I'm checking all those boxes. That content lives forever. Okay. The YouTube is going to constantly get me SEO, which is actually green marketing, but the YouTube video is nurturing people. Okay. It's bridging the gap between green and red. The blog post, same thing. It's going to get me SEO, but it's also going to nurture people. It's going to help me to get having the video, and that is going to help me to get referred by AI chat and like things like that, right? And then the email is going to nurture my email audience, which is already bought into me. They're already warm-ish, right? We don't know, everyone's in like varying temperatures of warmth, but it's going to keep them warmed up, ready for my next offer. And then what am I forgetting? Email, blog, newsletter, video, podcast. The podcast is going out to people who subscribe to my podcast, nurturing them for the offer, which is where, but this is my podcast is my greatest sales engine. Podcasts are amazing sales engines. So I'm at the point, because I've been building this engine for a couple of years, where I'm hitting all 4 boxes occasionally for my forever content. But sometimes I just do a podcast and I forget to write an email and there's no blog post. So it's okay if you do one, but for me, my minimally viable is every week podcast. Okay. So that is going to be in my, in here, right? So that's my forever content. Now, the other thing that's going to be yellow is there will probably be, for me, because I love Instagram. I know it's crazy, but I love Instagram. And so I will have IG reels that are more opt-in CTA focused. You'll see what I mean by that in a second. So some of my Instagram reels are built to be green marketing, but some of them are built to be yellow marketing. And for me, if something is getting someone a mini chat trigger to get on my email list, that is yellow marketing, not green marketing. If I'm doing an Instagram reel to get more follows, I'm considering that green marketing. Okay. Now it doesn't mean that there isn't overlap. There often is overlap. Or sometimes you design a reel to be for follows, but it actually gets a bunch of opt-ins or vice versa. Right. So I'm not saying like they don't cross, because they absolutely do. It's that at any given time when I'm creating a piece of content, I know what the core goal and objective of that piece of content is, because a nurture piece of content is going to be slightly different than a growth piece of content. And I used to be really good at the yellow and red and struggle a lot with the green. In recent months, I have been just kicking booty on Instagram with this. So we're going to talk about that in a second, because that's definitely going to be part of my green drizzle. Okay. So regularly posted social media posts or anything that's driving opt-ins regularly. I should make that really clear. Regularly, weekly, right? It's not like a one-off thing that's driving opt-ins, like speaking at a summit. That'd be a one-off thing. A yellow drizzle that could actually be also green drizzle could be if you regularly become a guest on other people's podcasts. So I want to do that. That's something I would love to do. I would consider that more of a green strategy than a yellow, but podcasts are so highly nurturing that I think it could cross over both. So you know what, for the sake of like having it here, let's put podcast guesting system. It's something I just haven't had the bandwidth to implement fully. I know exactly how I want to do it, but one brick at a time. Okay. So that's my yellow drizzle. All right. That's the stuff I'm going to be building all the time. Here's what I want. Okay. I'm going to like go off my script a little bit here, and I want to address the yellow drip for a second. Okay. Yellow drip, if we think about it, right? The goal of yellow drip is, I have a slide here that will share it. The goal of yellow drip is passive and consistent or constant nurturing, and it's to help people trust me. Okay. So it can't be the podcast that I'm releasing every week, because that's not passive. I have to create it every week. But because it's forever content, the second it exists, this is the beauty of forever content. The second it exists, it is now also drip nurture, because now, did you hear how many times I referenced other podcast episodes I've done and said, hey, go listen to that? That is yellow drip. I'm not giving you, I might be saying, yeah, come join me in the Consistent Clients Club. But I'm also saying, hey, if you have questions about that, go listen to this episode. If you have questions about that, go listen to that episode. This is like cross-referencing nurture content with each other, for example. Okay. That is exactly what that's going to look like. That's one example. For me specifically, I'm going to say podcast episodes. I'm also going to say in my yellow drip is going to be my automated email sequences that reshare with new email subscribers content I've already created. This is something I set up once, and then I barely have to touch it, and it's going to do that yellow nurture for me. That's very high leverage. It's a bit more work, but it's very high leverage. This one works really well because my podcasts are designed to sell ultimately, not directly, but they're designed to get you to the next step. That's why I'm soft seeding the offer constantly in the podcast episode. So it's easy for me to go like, oh, go listen to that podcast episode. So I'm like, I don't know which of the 10 episodes is going to get you finally going like, I got to join that club, but I know it's going to happen eventually, right? Because I know, because I have evidence, I have data to show that. Okay. So that is the yellow drip. Yellow deluge is a little bit different. I don't do a lot of yellow deluge. Sometimes I do. So the yellow deluge is usually connected to a red deluge, meaning like, you know how before a cart open period, you would do like a free training or like a webinar or a challenge. That could be considered a yellow deluge because you're massively nurturing people all at once in a project format, not like this is my weekly content, but I'm running this challenge or I'm doing this live workshop. So for me, this could be like a live workshop, something like that. Okay. And it's live, remember, because it's a deluge. Okay. I thought of another red, which is going to be CTA for CCC. Sorry, calls to action to get people into the Consistent Clients Club in my low ticket offers. That is also a red drip. Someone buys a low ticket offer. Now they're consuming that low ticket offer, like the Booked in 5 Days challenge, for example. And within that, it's like, hey, you should really join the Consistent Clients Club. That is a soft promo, a red drip for the Consistent Clients Club. So it's great. I love red drips because it's like tiny little things I can do to just make sure everyone's aware of my offers all the time and they know what their next step is. And it does all the work for me. All right. Now let's move into green. You guys with me? Ready to do green? So in green, our number one focus, which completes our core elements of our ideal client magnet, is going to be my green drizzle, that regular heartbeat of green marketing. The reason this is the one I want to focus on is because you can't really do a green drip until you figured it out with a drizzle. Here's what I mean by that. A green drip, meaning you would be getting constantly, passively, consistently, set it and forget it, something that is getting in front of people all the time. Now, one thing that is going to get in front of people all the time passively is SEO. All the stuff I've been doing in my forever content not only is helping me cross-reference content and create yellow drip, it's also creating SEO for green drip. Awesome, right? So that's going to happen just as a byproduct of doing my forever content, which is pretty cool. This is why the forever content is so important. For my green drizzle though, let's say I'm doing Instagram Reels, which I am. So I'm going to put that here. Oops, I want to keep that. We're going to do Instagram Reels. All right. So here's what's going to happen with Instagram Reels. If I want to go this means I'm actively every week creating Reels that are going to get in front of new people. If I want to turn a reel that helps me to get new followers into an ad that's running all the time, which could totally be a green drip because it's just all the time happening, right? With minimal maintenance, I first have to prove it as a drizzle. I first have to create it and test it. I don't just set it up as an ad. You have to make sure that it's actually doing that job and getting that result. So in the same way that the forever content helps to feed the other boxes, the green drizzle is also going to help and help to feed that. Okay. So if I suddenly go, oh God, I've got a reel that's helping me get followers really well, which I do. I want to set that up as an ad, then that's not going to be a green drip, but it's based on content that started as a green drizzle. Okay. So my Instagram Reels is going to be my main green drizzle. Let's look at the slide that tells us the question we need to be asking about green drizzle to see if there's anything else. Okay. So the main question we're asking ourselves for our green drizzle is, how are people finding you? First contact from the marketing that you do actively and regularly. Think weekly. So examples of that can be social media content that gets in front of cold audiences. For me, that's Reels and trial Reels. Trial Reels, I test, go to cold audiences. I see what performs well. I use that on my main feed. Another one is regular podcast guesting. I forgot about that one. This is one I'm not quite ready to implement. It's kind of maybe later, but podcast guesting system. Okay. That's going to be great because this is going to get me in front of more people over time. I feel like green deluge is going to happen when I get invited to speak at summits. It also happens if I happen to get a piece of content that just goes, I'm not going to say viral, but really goes wild and gets a lot of results. But my main focus is going to be the boxes that are in light yellow. So my green drizzle, my yellow drizzle, and then all of my red marketing. Those are my priorities. The rest of them are either add-ons or happen as a byproduct of other marketing. And something like speaking at summits, that's such a great thing to do, deluge, but I can't control when other people have summits and making that the core part of my growth marketing. I love when it happens, but I need to make sure I'm really locked in on the stuff my business is doing regularly to get in front of new people before I add on that piece. So that's my ideal client magnet. That's what it looks like. The next question becomes, what do I do first? What do I do second? What do I do third? And there's a very specific order we want to do this in, which I told you at the beginning, back when the numbers were on here. We're going to start with red deluge. First, I'm going to do the founding members launch to get it out there. Now, while I'm doing that, because I'm doing that right now, I'm also using my forever content because I've already established this, right? In my case, you're not starting from scratch either. You probably have pieces of this. Some of your strategies might not be completely doing their job, or you might have a strategy that you're trying to make do all the jobs and it really just needs one specific job. Like I said, even reels, some reels are nurture, some reels are growth. They might all do both, but I think of them differently when I'm reverse engineering them. So I'm going to start with my founding members launch. Then I'm going to start getting into more consistent mentions of it and building up the red infrastructure for the membership. Then I'm going to really hone in on my yellow forever content right? I'm kind of going out of order because I already have forever content, but I want to make sure that I have my sales stuff in place before I like really go crazy on that. And then I'm going to focus on establishing my growth system. Now, because I already kind of have the green and yellow in place, it's really just obvious. I got to focus on the red. Like the red is the number one goal here. So what I'm going to be doing is my number one focus right now is my founding members launch. Any content that's leading to that, like this video that you're watching, is a priority, but also just making sure I'm setting all that up, promoting it, etc., is a priority. Okay. Then I'll move into the drizzle. Then I'll move into the drip. All right. That is my plan. This is my ideal client magnet. I had not created this before I started recording this video. You got to watch in real time as I went through and asked myself the questions to build this. And this is exactly what I'm going to be teaching you to do in the Consistent Clients Club. I'm going to have a full training for you on creating your ideal client magnet. Some of what I showed you today are just bits and pieces and slides from that. I'm going to teach you how to build your magnet, how to assess where it is right now, and what needs to be added in the future. We're going to I'm going to give you the core strategies that everybody needs in their ideal client magnet. So there's some strategies that are going to be unique to you. No two ideal client magnets are going to look alike. No one's is going to look exactly like mine. But there are core strategies that everyone is going to want to implement to kind of get these first boxes rolling. Then every single month in the Consistent Clients Lab, we're going to drop a new strategy, tell you which boxes it fits in, and you're going to get a video on how to implement that strategy and something that you can install in your ideal client magnet that month. Ultimately, what we're going to have is an ultimate epic library of every single strategy that you can imagine to get clients, as well as a process for figuring out which ones to apply to your business. That is the goal. I am so tired of seeing service providers struggle to get consistent clients. And I'm considering it my mission to create a really clear container experience resources so that you know every month what you need to do, not just be like, what am I going to do to get clients this month, but what brick am I adding into my ideal client magnet so I'll get clients this month and next month and the month after. That's the idea. So if you're interested in learning more about the Consistent Clients Club right now, at the time of this recording, you're going to have to send me an email or a DM on Instagram because I'm not sharing the details publicly at this moment, but it is open. We do have people signing up right now. I have an insane offer for our founding members. I will be sharing more publicly later. Eventually, the links will be around this video to get into the club publicly. But because this is my yellow drizzle and it's not yet a drip, meaning it's live happening right now, that's where we're at this moment. So in the future, you'll be able to get the details and join us. We're starting just a movement of service providers getting booked out consistently. So I hope this was helpful for you. If you have any questions at all about anything I shared today or the Consistent Clients Club, please do not hesitate to reach out to me via email at hello@courtneychaal.com or just send me a DM on Instagram. I love DMs. DMs are a huge part of my ideal client magnet. I'm not going to add them in this right now because I feel like this is pretty solid, but I could absolutely add my DM outreach strategy into my green drizzle. I could add it into my yellow drizzle and also red, right? I could absolutely add that in here. I can't wait to share more about this with you, and I will chat with you next week.